All right, Commissioners, then we can move on to item 1.14, adoption fiscal year 2020 operating and capital budgets.
Okay, Commissioners, so we have a few documents out there. We're just going to kind of hit some of the changes from last week and get everything in line, and then we can go through some of the motions. So the first document is the general fund document. And we did have some changes that were made during the last session, and I'll let Jake go over them with you. And they're highlighted with the blue numbers next to them and the various footnotes.
Good morning, Jake Dyer, Chief of Budget, and I am, you'll see little footnotes along each little section, like starting with, you'll see for under reserve fund balance, you'll see a footnote 4-7, and then under expenditures, you'll see a 1, 2, and so forth. So the first footnote I want to go over with is foot number 1, which is for the Board of Education. As we discussed during last week's review, that for the Kerwin Commission, the teacher incentive grant, the county match, since the governor has not officially signed the bill nor funding it, we funded the cost of the state share of that match. We went ahead and moved it back into the contingency funds for a later date. So once the governor approves the bill and funds it, then we'll come back to the board and transfer the funds from contingency into the Board of Education so they can receive the grant funding.
But that money is specifically earmarked for the education teacher raises, correct?
Correct.
Correct. It'll stay in contingency until a decision's made.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next footnote, you'll see number 2, which you'll see in many areas on this page, and that is the 1% COLA that the commissioners approved for the non-union county employees, which would be a January 1, 2020 implementation date. Footnote number 3, which is the inspector building code position. We discussed it last week. We were working towards a January hire date. I was able to review the budget request and look at the numbers, and I was able to move that up to a November hire date. So we were able to move it up by 2 months so that position get hired. That is located, you'll see number 3 in several spots because there are some areas that impacts that. Like for example, we're going to need to we need to purchase a vehicle for the position, so that will be a debt service cost, and there will also be some IT needs for the position, like a computer and a cell phone, and that actually gets recorded to the fiscal administrative services budget under IT. Then we have footnote number 4 under general government, and that is for the summer youth program for Tri-County Council, which is a 1-year commitment. Footnote number 5 is the post office road expansion study, as well as the Billingsley Road analysis study. They were added to the general fund as pay-go funding with the use of fund balance. Number 6, which is under other agencies / miscellaneous, which is the Charles County Watermen's Association of $40,000, which is a 1-year commitment. And then last, number 7, as you see under capital project pay-go as you go, is the readiness and environmental protection integration, which is commonly known as the REPI program, and that is $460,000 for our match funding for that, and those funds will go into our capital improvement program. So those are a summary of all the changes that were made. We still have a balanced budget in the total FY20 general fund budget is $425,097,500.
And I just want to point out too, on the contingency line, if we match the teacher's grant, we would still have $100,000 in contingency for to start the year.
In which we typically do for emergencies purposes that come up throughout the year. Moving on to page 2 for the board's review is the changes that we made for the use of the fund balance. We updated the list to show the changes that they did last week that was added for one-time cost use of fund balance. And they're highlighted in blue. The first one you'll see under the capital projects is the REPI program of $460,000. And then we have if you go to reference number 8, that's for the Billingsley Road analysis of $250,000. Reference number 9 is the post office road expansion study of $150,000. Under number 15 is the Summer Youth Tri-County Council use of fund balance of $62,500. And last, reference number 17 under conservation is the $40,000 Charles County Watermen's Association. So if you add that plus all the ones that are in black, that would show our FY20 fund balance use of $6,429,900.
And then the following pages are just basically the same information. On the first page is done by department and agency total, but this would break it down into more detail, showing the various agencies and the various divisions of each department. So this is just for informational purposes. And after the budget is adopted, we do put together a budget in brief document, which is basically kind of putting together all the documents that you're seeing today, so it's out there for the public's view in a timely manner as we work on our budget book. Are there any questions or comments on the general fund?
I'm not sure if this falls on the general fund, but I do want to mention it.
Sure.
I would ask my colleagues to consider supplementing and supporting recreation fees for our senior 60, or whatever the state recommendation is, as well as our low state recommendation resident, low income state residents for this budget cycle, if somehow we can work the details.
Okay. So we can work with recreation to try to get a dollar amount to tie to that, and then we can always come back before the commissioners and present a transfer or an amendment of some sort.
Okay.
That would be a mid-year adjustment after it's adopted.
I would like to see it happen too. I don't know how the board feels.
You said we had some contingency money available, right, that we could come back to?
Yeah, so we'll
we
start
could-
off with $100,000.
So you could come back and we could have a budget amendment at any point and allocate those funds to it?
And that would be only for Charles County residents. Yeah.
Right, yeah,
All right.
thank you.
We will work with recreation to see if we can get a total on that, and maybe actually like how the process would work. They could explain that at the time as well.
Thank you.
Okay. The next document is just the new position list. We did present this to the commissioners last week, and the only change on this list was that we added the inspector position. So you'll notice that in blue on the first page. Everything else is the same as was presented the last time, but it's just providing you with a summary of the positions that were added. We have 30 FTEs, so an FTE meaning that we also take part-time and make it into a full-time equivalent. And then all funds, it's 47.3 full-time equivalent positions are going to be part of the adopted FY2020 budget. There's no questions on that. Next document is our CIP document. So we did have a couple changes last week for the CIP. We added the $460,000 for the REPI program in FY2020, and then we moved forward the Hamilton Road sidewalks. So the total 5-year plan is for the general government projects is $294,202,000. So the plan that we're adopting is $1.3 million below the commissioner's debt affordability limit. And then we have all the projects listed out for you in detail. So any questions or comments on the CIP? Okay, the next document we have is the enterprise funds. So the document we have here, again, this is a format that we use in our budget in brief for the citizens, providing the overall size of the budget as well as any fee increases and explanations of what the funds are used for. All these numbers are the same as last week except for the recreation fund. We did have to do a small tweak on that. So I'll let Jake go over that with you.
If you go to page 3, which will show the recreation fund, and went up slightly, a small amount, and that was to cover the 1% COLA that is going to be given on January 1. We just had to make a little adjustment to it so their employees could receive it. But we were able to make it balance it so it's in balance.
It's in balance, yeah. So the adjustment was just $2,600. But all of the other sides of the budgets remain the same and include the salary adjustments that the commissioners approved. And then the last document is the fees and charges, and this is the same information that was provided with you when we started our review of the FY2020 budget. So that is recapping everything, and if there are no more questions or comments, we can go into motions.
And before, did you have a question?
Just one question. So I'm looking at under the CIP under government projects with Higdon, Wade, and parks in the CIP for full-day kindergarten. Does that round out all of the elementary schools in the county for full-day?
I know we had this question before. Yes, I
It
thought the
does.
answer was yes, but I wanted to get a nod.
Okay, that rounds everything out.
Yes.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Commissioners, before adoption of the budget, I'd just like to bring to your attention, we had in fact spoken about the issue of a shelter. Community advocates, particularly our faith leaders and nonprofit service providers, have made clear and compelling cases that our homeless population needs permanent location for a shelter and additional support services. A growing number of women with small children need adequate shelter, safety, and assistance with a transition to more stable housing. We've recognized the need to go through a deliberative process where we will work together with community stakeholders to select a location that meets the variety of needs our homeless residents are facing. We need to also discuss and identify the most appropriate strategy for delivering those services, whether it is managed by our own staff or contracted out to an agency skilled in providing these needs. The process to open a homeless shelter will take time and therefore cannot be completed within the scope of this budget adoption. For this reason, I'm requesting from consensus from the board, the adopted fiscal year 2020 budget will not currently include funds for a permanent homeless shelter. However, the Board of Commissioners, through consent, is fully committed to exploring options for funding a permanent homeless shelter and will be moving forward quickly and in collaboration with experts and advocates to ensure that this priority is addressed within the next fiscal year. So we're requesting again through consensus to amend our budget as needed after the planning process is complete, and want to assure the community that we're taking the necessary steps to address this important issue. So I'm requesting, and I will need obviously the consensus of the board, to direct staff to look for options for shelter funding and available options for sites and development. Any questions?
So what, when you say direct staff, what office or department do you believe this would fall under?
Well, it would go through fiscal, and we would have to go through the process of looking for sites, et cetera.
But who would be the stakeholders, the appropriate staff to have the expertise, not just the money, but the know-how and what the needs of the county and partnering possibly, like you said, with outside agencies? What
Well,
department would be responsible for doing that, other than fiscal and administrative services?
Yeah, I will defer to staff, the county administrator, so.
Given the request as it's been currently articulated, I would approach it in a more of a matrix team type of approach, not just one particular department. It seems like I would need to bring in people who have functional expertise in different areas. Certainly fiscal, as the commission president pointed out, but also PGM and Public Works, for instance, regarding their areas of expertise that would come to bear on this. We'd have to bring a multi-department approach to it.
So I don't think for this conversation, I see this more of as a budget question. I don't think getting a consensus that we would agree to adjust the budget later would be appropriate. We take budget adjustments individually, but I think the conversation that, if I'm understanding what you just read, it's a bigger conversation. It's a policy change, bringing in different departments to manage this. I think this is a separate agenda item that should be presented and give Mr. Belton's time to identify the appropriate staff, and then to come back with a game plan of what they would do to reach that objective, and then we should vote on that. That sounds more than just a line item in a budget.
Would it be a consensus to allow Mr. Belton and staff to move forward with some type of exploratory?
I'm
More
not
of a
comfortable.
consensus.
I'm not comfortable with that because the item that's before us right now, 1.14, is a budget item. What Commissioner Collins is just read and what he's stating, that's a policy shift. That's more than just budget. That's a separate agenda item.
So let me ask this question. I understand where Commissioner President's going with this. You're looking for, I guess, a consensus from us that we are committed to solving the problem, and we want to take the proper steps with staff to fully vet the process, fully vet the location, fully vet who's going to run it, if we're going to run it, and then you're asking, basically, you've included in the budget portion of this because there's going to be a fiscal note to it. So I'm not opposed to having an open mind about it and moving forward with it. And I see where Commissioner Stewart's going. So, I mean, I understand why you're bringing it up now, and I'm as for the consensus. As far as consensus, I'm for it. I'm for moving forward with it and understanding there's going to be a fiscal note. So as we move forward through the next 6 to 8 months, that we're going to have to come back and revisit the budget possibly in order to move forward with it in this fiscal year. Is that what you're asking, Mr. President?
I think that's exactly what I'm asking for. I mean, what I recognize is it will require a process, and it will certainly require input from county staff. But, I'm seeking consensus now because obviously I couldn't direct staff as an individual.
I'm all in. I think it's a great idea.
I understand your point, but just for the record, I don't think the process is handled properly. This should not have been brought up with this line item. It's a
And if I
separate
might, if I might make a
conversation.
suggestion regarding the potential tasking, perhaps it would be something more appropriate after the budget's approved to recommend and task the staff with during the new business portion of the agenda.
I just don't think, I think Commissioner President doesn't want to delay. He realizes the urgency of this. So I see where you're coming from. So if it means we just wait until we move into new business, right, I guess the next agenda item, then just get the consensus then. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Belton? Be fine?
And are we
Just a
recognizing
suggestion.
that a consensus is different from a vote? Because this board stated that votes would not be taken in new business. Are we agreeing to that?
So are we going for the consensus, or we are actually taking a vote on the issue?
I don't believe we need a consensus to direct staff. I mean, a vote to direct staff. We can just use a consensus to move staff. So I'm fine with that. Mr. President, are you okay?
So he has to rewrite.
As long as that is agreed, as long as that's what we're agreeing on moving forward, moving that to 1.15, then I'm fine with that.
Okay. We're okay with it.
Okay.
Good.
So moving forward to actual adoption, or did you have additional questions?
No, I'm not sure if you're making anything adoption now, or we have to move to 1.15 to do the consensus. What are you, I'm a little bit confused.
Mr. Belton, will us adopting the budget without including this in this discussion, will that impact what we can do with the shelter moving forward?
No.
Okay.
Let's do an amendment to the budget.
So we can just vote on vote on the budget now and then go into the next item and discuss the other.
That's what was the suggestion, yes.
Okay. Okay, Commissioners, I need a motion to adopt ordinance number 2019-07 for the fiscal year 2020 general fund operating budget in the amount of $425,097,500, and to approve the fiscal year 2020 new position list of general fund operations, which includes adding to the authorized strength of the Sheriff's Office 2 new school resource officer positions, 2 new forensic science unit lab technicians, and additional support staff for the Sheriff's Office, 2 additional attorney positions for the State's Attorney's Office, and additional positions throughout county government operations.
So move.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded to approve general fund operating budget ordinance number 2019-07. Any additional questions or concerns? All in favor? Aye. And opposed? The ayes have it. Capital Improvement Program. Need a motion to adopt Resolution 2019-08 for the fiscal year 2020 capital budget in the amount of $156,308,000 and the fiscal year 2020 through 2024 capital improvement program in the amount of $546,335,000 and the associated water and sewer connection fee rates as proposed to support related projects, and the associated school excise tax rates as proposed to support new school construction projects.
So moved.
Moved, and is there a second?
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And the ayes have it. Inspection and Review Enterprise Fund. We need a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2020 Inspection and Review Enterprise Fund operating budget in the amount of $4,115,800.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any additional questions? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? The ayes have it. The Recreation Enterprise Fund. We need a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2020 Recreation Enterprise Fund operating budget in the amount of $2,432,200.
So moved.
Moved, and is there a second?
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any additional questions? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And the ayes have it. The Landfill Enterprise Fund. We need a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2020 Landfill Enterprise Fund operating budget in the amount of $9,617,500 and as proposed to maintain the tipping fee at $75 per ton. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Moved and properly seconded. Any additional concerns raised? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And the ayes have it. The Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. We need a motion to adopt ordinance number 2019-10 for the fiscal year 2020 water and sewer operating budget in the amount of $39,660,400 and to increase the associated water and sewer user rates as proposed by approximately 12.1% on the average water and sewer bill to fund the budget.
So moved.
Moved and properly seconded for approval. Any additional questions? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Any ayes have it. The Environmental Services Enterprise Fund. We need a motion to adopt Ordinance 2019-09 for the fiscal year 2020 Environmental Service Fee Enterprise Fund operating budget in the amount of $7,019,900 and to increase the environmental service fee to $119 per improved property tax accounts for properties outside the municipal limits of La Plata and Indian Head, and to decrease the fee to $19 for properties located within La Plata and Indian Head as proposed.
So moved.
Moved, moved and properly seconded. Any additional questions? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And the ayes have it. The Watershed Protection and Restoration Enterprise Fund. Is there a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2020 Watershed Protection and Restoration Enterprise Fund operating budget in the amount of $4,764,700
Motion to approve.
And as proposed, to increase the stormwater remediation fee from $61 to $78 per improved property tax account for properties outside the municipal limits of La Plata and Indian Head.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any additional questions? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Any ayes have it. And finally, fees and charges. We need a motion to adopt the proposed fiscal year 2020 fees and charges for county government services.
So moved.
So moved, and is there a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. Any additional questions? If there are none, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Any ayes have it.
Okay, well, congratulations. We now have an FY2020 budget.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you so much.
You guys worked hard on this.